So looking forward, we have the FA Fridays, which covers the fundamental analysis by Pepe and Obrizi. And we also have the Stock Saturdays covered with GeForce, who goes over the S&P options. And this Friday, Pepe and Obrizi have covered the SEC attack with Coinbase. So over to you guys.
Yeah, so this week, Obrizi did most of the parsing through the doc. This is going to be a multi-part series. These are 200 pages of a SEC complaint against Coinbase and Binance. In my assessment, the case against Binance is somewhat concerning, but not completely, because it's a lot of it's like the SEC took a shotgun to both of them, and they're about like 50 yards away. So, some of the stuff might not hit that hard, in my opinion, but it's definitely important to know what's going on. In my view, a lot of it's FUD, but Obrizi does have a lot of good points that he found in these complaints. So I'll hand it over to him, and then I'll bring up some relevant news in terms of legislation and stuff like that.
Hi, yeah, thanks. So I think the Coinbase suit is mostly focusing on the securities issue, whereas the Binance suit, at its heart, is a corruption and, incorrect behavior. I mean, a lot of the allegations in the suit, the SEC says they have proof of Binance Global actually targeting whales, U.S. citizens that were whales, giving them heads up when their assets are about to be frozen, deleting messages specifically so U.S. law enforcement agencies can't get a hold of this stuff. So the criminal suit, or the criminality side of the SEC suit against Binance, in my opinion, is pretty solid. If you look at the Coinbase side, or the securities accusation, I don't think it's nearly as solid. Keep in mind, the Coinbase suit is going up to a 53-year-old judge. So I think it's going to be a lot of how they're going to interpret that, if they're able to understand the differences between what a traditional security is versus crypto.
Yeah, I agree. And on that point, McHenry and Thompson proposed a bill, and I think what's so significant about this bill is that CFTC praised the bill, the chair of the CFTC, and some of the main implications of this bill that are worth noting is the pathway to registration for crypto securities to be traded are under SEC purview. But the thing is that in this bill, DeFi assets specifically that would be traditionally certified by SEC as securities would be exempt from registering with the SEC. And again, like I said previously, right, CFTC thinks that's a good thing. It also explicitly creates, I guess, rules for CFTC to oversee crypto spot commodity market under existing laws. So it's clarifying that and would stop a lot of this SEC overreach that we've been seeing. Yeah, at least in my assessment, So we'll see if it gets passed. I mean, I'm sure this will go through many iterations before it would even be brought to the table. But it's definitely a clearer pathway for registration of digital assets, or the exemption of registration of certain digital assets. So this is definitely something to keep your eyes on as it evolves. I'm sure, like I said, it'll take a lot of time. But in the context of Coinbase and Binance suits by SEC, yeah, again, I think a lot of it is just scattergun type tactics. And personally, I don't think that the court. So, I guess to Obrizi's point, right? Look, if the judge doesn't really understand it, that will play a role to a certain point, but at On the other side of the coin, I would say that once the judge realizes through just, ongoing court proceedings and filings and stuff like that, that the SEC really is using a scattergun technique to bring this shit down, I don't think that the judge is going to like seeing that. I don't know what you think, O'Breezy, but that's kind of my perspective on it in terms of, judges don't like to be, judges don't like the court to be kind of like a positioning token, you know what I mean, for ongoing issues. And in this case, it's more, crony capitalism type situation.
Well, the court very well might take offense to, legislation by enforcement is basically what the SEC is trying to do. They're
Exactly.
trying to create an enforcement that's going to create law going forward.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely my point, and I don't think the SEC is going to like that. And again, I mean, it could be that certain assets are securities, but the biggest problem that I see, and I don't have it up right now, but I'll bring up the point, and I can provide the source later in the server. But biggest problem is that SEC served the Wells notice to Coinbase, right? Coinbase took them to court and said, well, we want a response in a timely manner to questions that we have. And then SEC basically said, well, we can do whatever we want. We can take as long as we want. And we don't have to give you a reasonable timetable to respond, right? And then what do? They sue them instead, right? Instead of answering the questions that Coinbase had that are genuine questions, right? SEC decides to sue them, which is not a good look. Because the thing is that if it's so clear that you could sue them, right, the legal logic would be, if it's so clear that you could sue them and the rules are so obvious, why couldn't you just send that over to them so they would know and they could fix the problem if they didn't realize it, right? That's like the point of the SEC. It's not just to go around suing all these different, companies and stuff like that. So I don't think that that's a good look at all. And SEC filed to get an extension on providing that clarity. So if they have to file an extension to provide clarity, then how clear are their arguments really? Just it's insinuated in the argument that they're making in the court and by their actions. So I think that's the most, rational take that I can come up with on this situation, especially in relation to Coinbase. The Binance case is a little bit different, but even then, CZ just posted, 30 minutes ago or something about this this statement from the court transcript saying there's no evidence, absolutely no evidence of any dissipation of assets whatsoever. So it's like, even in the Binance suit, I don't really see this. I think the FUD side of things is heavier than the actual negative outcome or potential for negative outcome.
Yeah, and one of the things to keep in mind with this is just like the Ripple suit, this is not going to be a judge dismisses this out of hand. This is probably going to be a multi-year thing, and like the Ripple suit where it's looking more and more likely like a jury trial might end up happening, we very well could see the same thing with these two suits.
Agreed. Yeah, and and to that point as well, over the years, that I can almost guarantee as well that this will be pushed out for years. But over the years with the XRP suit, it just came out now that there's internal communications that go contrary, and we'll write this up in a future report. But there's internal SEC communication from 2018 where they were saying that there's kind of an ebb and flow with these digital assets where at one point they could be a commodity and then they turn into a security, and then if things change they could go back to being a commodity. So it's clear just within internal SEC communication that they don't even really understand at what point is it a security, at what point is it a commodity, right? And there is a lot of gray area. So if there's gray area to SEC, there's definitely gray area to Coinbase. And Coinbase is trying to be compliant, right, through their actions and their filings. And so, again, it's not a good look for SEC. And it's going to come down to the fact that we need legislation. I think everybody knows that, the only one that has gone back on saying that is Gary Gensler, and it's just a power trip, really. So,
yeah, and on the topic of the power trip, if you look at what he's actually targeting, so they're targeting 17 tokens, coins, whatever, but they make mention of 2 others, and of the 17, most of that is decentralized infrastructure layers. They even make mention of wallets acting as brokerage. So they're looking at decentralized wallets. Wallets. They're looking at these tokens that are used to move between exchanges, but also pointing out like BUSD was a security because there's the ability to stake it or rewards given for holding it.
Yep.
That just shows that instead of just targeting these entities where people are able to, say just targeting Coinbase or just targeting Binance, they're moving forward. They're trying to set up the precedents where they're able to target these non-centralized places.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so I think that pretty much sums it up. This is going to take a while. Like I said, I mean, these are like 100-page documents, so we'll parse through, try to give the most rational takes as possible, and connect it with other relevant ongoing news like this bill and the filings in the XRP case. Yeah, that's pretty much it from us.
Awesome. Thank you, gents. Really appreciate that. So it's always interesting to see that kind of stuff. So moving on to questions, we've got Space Cowboy again on stage and Christine as well. So Christine, over to you first.
I really like the discussion, and I see how, the points you're making with the analysis go to the impacts of the SEC investigation on major exchanges. What are you guys' thoughts about the potential domino effect that might happen on smaller exchanges and I guess just like cryptocurrency startups, while this goes on for a few years? Do you think we will see like a slowdown on projects coming into the space and more focus on the ones in the space if they're going to make it or not?
No, I don't think so. I think that crypto people don't care. That's my assessment. I think that the people that know what this is, even if some crazy crackdown came with regulations, which I don't see it happening like that. I think that they're just going to clarify it. I think what's a good indication of that is look how many years it took for there to be a bill for online sales tax, right? Like after the internet was running all these e-commerce websites and stuff like that, they finally came out, what was it, like 10, 15 years later with legislation. So I don't see that the smart people and the builders will really care about this until something more definitive comes. And even then, I don't think that they're going to care. They'll just find a workaround. You'll click a button that says, I'm not a U.S. citizen, even though, some of us are, and we're gonna still use the platform anyway. Like the thing is too to consider is, let's say that CFTC wins this argument and they say that Ethereum is a commodity. Okay, cool. Let's say that some ERC20 tokens are securities. How are you going to stop people from swapping Ethereum on a DEX that's a commodity, not regulated by SEC, for securities? Not going to happen. I mean, like it's not a rational thing that's going to happen. So
Yeah. Just for that point, and I guess first your earlier point about gray areas, I just want to say like it's all a gray area. I mean, they have no framework yet, and that's kind of why they are suing and seeing what will go through and what won't go through to apply. But to your and I mean, if I'm not, maybe it's possible I'm not properly understanding. So if I'm like not giving a proper retort, just let me know. But to your thing about how would they enforce it? I mean, I don't know exactly how they would do it, but I can foresee some ways they can do it. First and foremost, would just be consumer behavior. Most new entrants would not be using a DEX. They would be using a centralized exchange where they feel safer, and they can easily enforce it there. But for the people who do go to DEXs, utilizing a centralized exchange to off ramp also includes your tax information as well. So that's another way they can kind of run that back. But then also the government can easily sanction different groups and ways for you to exit, or for companies who try not to comply. They can make it so that if they try to move funds, they can't. Like we saw that during the bull run, where any wallet that touched any company or any specific institution that they decided was blacklisted would also get blacklisted, like even if you're innocent, right? So they definitely have. I think people are underestimating what they could do. I don't think they will do those things because there's money to be made from crypto, right? If more people are in crypto and they can tax it and they can be part of it, they're going to want to, let BlackRock do ETF. They're going to want more people to come in and make money, right, off retail. So, but they can definitely do a lot of like really annoying shit. I generally believe they are like letting people do a lot more than they could. Like if they wanted to, they could make this shit way worse. But I do think it's good to be optimistic about it. I think that just because they're trying to regulate and go through this stuff, I don't think it's a negative. Right now, I'm actually bullish on all that stuff. Let them settle out. Let them get it on the forefront. Let them make it safer or whatever they're trying to do. Right now, I think it's actually a bullish thing until later if it doesn't come out that way. But I'm actually bullish on all this government intervention. Right, they're paying attention to it. It's making people see it more. Bigger institutions are coming around it. The more safer people feel, the more people are going to come in. Right, so. And for us, the people who are used to crypto native actions, maybe it's more beneficial because we're already on DEXs, right? So I think it's bullish actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to your point that like it's more about the annoyance factor, and for sure they can dictate social behavior without a question and not allow, they could do something where I think they could put the onus on the exchanges where like the exchange would be required to flag wallets or something like that interact with certain, dApps or something like that. But, I think that people could figure out a workaround for that eventually. But I definitely agree that it's bullish. I think that regulations and legislation getting pushed through are necessary. And I think it's the only thing that's going to solve this problem. But yeah, I don't.
Is your place where you're not sure how they would go about it, right?
Right. Yeah, and if they even would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't really make too much sense that they would crack down that much, and not just because it doesn't make sense, like in a general sense, like why from the crypto perspective, but in terms of the innovation perspective, like internationally. You know what I mean? Like the view in Europe and UK is way different than it is with regulatory agencies in the US. So they're not stupid. They don't want to get outpaced and
right. I mean, I think they will try to kind of control it, right, and make it more attractive for them and get more people in. But just more so, I wouldn't want people in crypto to underestimate what they could do because they could just like stop it. Like this whole time they can do a lot of really annoying stuff. And to your point, I don't think they will, but especially because you're talking earlier, they're suing people on this stuff, which is kind of like you're doing the most. And they could take the same approach for like enforcing random shit. Like, yeah, you know what? You got a KYC. If you're not KYC, we're going to do this and that. We're going to blacklist you. We're going to blacklist your wallets, all that stuff. And companies will listen, right? When it comes down to it, They're going to listen, especially if TradFi is moving in. They're getting more control. Like earlier you mentioned DeFi, right? Like why wouldn't they enforce DeFi regulations, right? If they're trying to make stuff securities. And a big part of that's because a lot of traditional companies have been involved with DeFi stuff since it came out, right? So it's not just like a crypto thing. It's also a traditional finance thing. And so it's more complex than being like, oh yeah, we're going to make it fucked up for the traditional companies, right? They're trying to make it more attractive. So they're definitely going to try to get a hands on it. But if crypto natives get too arrogant, they will literally just like shut it down. Like they did that already. We know they can do it. So that's like my only thing there. Because you might not think there's like a rational way for them to go about it. That's like smart, like how they enforce this. But there's definitely a hard power way for them to do it that would just be like terrible. It would be terrible, but yeah.
I'd like to interject here real quick. This weekend's Wall Street Journal talks about the EU, how they're looking at crypto and the legislation that they're looking at and probably going to pass the first part of this coming year is that they're going to classify all cryptos as securities. And then you have to apply and prove in a white paper, which would be like a MOU or a MOU, memorandum of understanding, that you give to your clients and prove through the white paper why you would not be a security. So that's what the EU is looking at right now.
From my point of view, one of the things I wanted to follow up with what Christine was asking about, will these cases have a negative impact on projects? If we just look at it like this, Ripple Labs, with a value of 65.5 million, has managed to keep the SEC on the ropes because of how gray legislation is, in the US at least, about crypto, has been able to keep the SEC on the ropes with a cap of $65.5 million. Binance US, the smaller of the two exchanges currently being sued, is worth $12.5 billion. Ripple Labs has kept this case going on for 3 years, even though they're saying they want clarification, they want this over sooner than later. That's probably a PR stunt, but it's been ongoing for 3 years. If it looks like it's going to be a bad ruling for these two exchanges, how long do you think they're going to keep this going?
Yeah, I mean, one thing there though is Ripple's should be much larger. No, it's isn't it like a bigger firm worth billions that is in crypto rather than the crypto first thing?
Speaking on Ripple Labs in particular, the
Okay,
entity is being sued.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I could be wrong. I think since it's through Ripple itself that they're like not they're like they get support from Ripple. I could be wrong. But Ripple is like pretty big. But yeah, to your point, I agree. Everything else, like they I don't know. I mean, they definitely will drag it out. I don't think the government minds dragging it out. Really, like the longer they can take being unclear, the more time they have to make shit up, which they've been trying to do. And if Ripple wins, that's great, you know. But if it looks like they will win, but imagine if Ripple didn't win, that would be like horrible for crypto. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I just wasn't sure about that one thing.
So yeah, considering how long it's going to take before we get any ruling on any three of these cases, because chances are the Ripple case is going to end up going to jury, it is looking more and more likely. How long do most of these crypto projects actually last? Most of them last as long as a bull run, which is usually isn't very long. So I don't see it hindering new projects, at least in the next few years.
Yeah, people won't care as long as they have access to the coins and they can make money. And I also have a belief that, you know, during COVID, the whole everybody getting money and everybody's indoors, so everybody's gambling on not just crypto but also on Robinhood and all this stuff was such an influx of capital. But I also believe that with all these economic hardships that people are facing now, that next time there's going to be even more, or at least a high rate of like extreme gambling where people are really trying to get out of the situation they're in, where they're going to take out loans, they're going to use credit to try to like gamble their way out. So I think that's something to look out for. Because I've talked about diminishing returns in the past. That as far as the cycles go, right, there's gonna be bigger valuations. It's gonna be hard to move the total amount. But if new entrants are coming in and crypto's becoming more mainstream, so there's gonna be more retail coming in, and they're gonna be like desperate. I could see them for the next run trying to like really crank out on a few like get money, get rich quick type stuff. So that could be a good opportunity, like psychologically.
Definitely.
For us,
I can
not for them.
see. Definitely agree with that. The whole idea of people are, especially if it looks like another bull run's about to start, I could definitely see people over leveraging, trying to get in, thinking that, hey, this is my lotto ticket. Remember the last bull run?
Yeah, it's unfortunate what we're gonna do to them, but yeah.
Cool. I appreciate that. Thank you everyone for that conversation about the FA Friday.